Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nomadic Diaries. I am your host, Doreen Cumberford, and today I have with me an amazing guest. Her name is Pio Mailhot-Leichter. Mailhot-Leichter. I apologize. Hi, Pia.
Hi, Doreen. Lovely to be here.
I'm so glad we finally got to connect. Now,
Me too.
I am just really so curious about your life. So tell me about the first date story. If you meet someone for the first time, tell me what are the highlights that you'd like to tell us about yourself?
Hmm. I usually like to ask what the person in front of me, and that would be you, like what's exciting you right now.
Ah, what's turning the tables?
I
What's
know, but that's what
exciting?
I would do. The first thing, if I was on a first date, the first thing I would do would be to ask a
You
question.
turn the tables. Yes, it's like being asked that question, where are you from? What do you
Yeah.
mean by that question?
Well, that was why that wasn't one of my questions, nor would it be what do you do? One of my
Exactly.
favorite questions is what's exciting you most right now?
Exactly. I'll tell you one of the things that's exciting me is we are running 30 podcasts in 30 days during the month of November on the topic of belonging.
Ooh.
So I think you and I have a lot to talk about in terms of the belonging project because you have lived so many different places. You've been an author, a coach, an entrepreneur, a founder. You were a journalist when you were in Sri Lanka. So that's what I'm excited about. How do you find and create belonging for yourself as you have moved around the globe?
Oh, it's interesting because moving definitely contributed to a desire to belong because I've been moving since I was a child. I was born in Sherbrooke. My mom's French Canadian. My dad's American from New York City, Lower East Side, Manhattan. And then we moved to the Lower East Side, Manhattan when I was shortly after I was born. And then we moved to Spain for a couple of years. That's where I went to preschool. And then
Yeah,
we moved back to New York City. And then my parents separated. My mom and I moved to Brooklyn. Then my mom and I moved to Puerto Rico after a couple of years, back to Manhattan. Then we moved to Montreal. Then we moved to Ottawa. Then I went to boarding school
my,
near Vermont. So almost every year, 2 years
yeah, yeah.
ish, I would move. My mom is French Canadian Catholic, and my dad is Eastern European background Jewish, New Yorker. And culturally, those are two very different cultures.
Very, very.
And I'm an only child, and my parents separated when I was 3. And my mom's family was back in Canada. My dad had a smaller family in New York City. But I often wondered where I belonged.
Oh,
Like
I'm sure.
I'm not Jewish because my mother's not Jewish. I'm not really Catholic. I'm not really, what am I? Like, where do I? And I've, on top of it, I've moved around a lot. And
Mhm.
so I remember going through phases, especially when I was a young adult, like in university, of like trying to find groups, usually like subcultures, where I could feel because we were different. I kind of felt like there was a community.
Yeah.
I tried, I tried sororities. I lasted one day. I just would try different places to see like where could I belong, and it took me many years and many moves to discover that I belong to me.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yay!
So you have a really a classic third culture kid story in that you've moved so much, you've recycled life in so many different forms, and I think the healthy place to arrive at is what you call yourself, which is a recovering nomad.
Exactly. Because as an adult, so I moved throughout my childhood and I went to 8 different elementary schools and high schools combined. And since this is what we did and this is what I knew, I continued that pattern as an adult because it's just what I did. So I went
Sure.
from New York to Sri Lanka, back to New York City, to France, to London, and now Copenhagen. And I've been in Copenhagen, oh my God, since 2010.
Hmm.
And it's where I decided to drop anchor
Excellent.
and to create roots for the first time.
Now, I I talk about this quite a lot. I talk about, falling in love with a place is a decision. It's an action, but it's also a decision. Tell me about that decision point of choosing Copenhagen. What was it? Was it the geographical situation? Was it the people, or a combination? Tell me What was it that created or motivated you to make that choice and that decision?
Well, I moved here from London with my husband, and I never anticipated it to be the choice I would make for it to become home. I thought it was just going to be another 2 to 3 year adventure and then
Yeah.
moving on. And unfortunately, our marriage didn't survive. And I went through and I don't know what divorce isn't difficult, but a gnarly divorce. And my first impulse was, okay, I think it's going to be Paris. Like, I'm
Yes, to flee.
I'm ready to move. Let's do a do-over. Turn the page. And luckily, the divorce brought me to the office of a wonderful therapist. And I remember sitting in front of her and I said, yeah, I think it's gonna be Paris. And she said, yeah, it could be Paris. And you could keep moving for every couple of years for the
Yeah,
rest of your life
yeah,
if that's what you want to do. And
yes.
no judgment. Or you could choose to learn how to stay,
Mm,
develop a deeper relationship with yourself, a place, and other
yeah,
people.
yeah,
And in that moment, I became aware that I had a choice. For
yes.
some reason, the default was just so active that I didn't even think about it. I wasn't making an active choice. It's just what I did.
Mm,
And faced with that choice, I was like, hey, that's really the new adventure. I've never done that before.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's learn how to stay. So I don't know if it was Copenhagen itself or it was just the place where I had this realization and it was
Mm.
just the place I was. And it was also Copenhagen is really good for my janked up New York City nervous system.
So it's very soothing, in other words.
It is. It's very calm. It's very safe. It's very relaxed. It's quiet. It's really antithetical to New York City
Yeah,
and the United States in a lot of ways.
yeah.
So there was
Especially
that
now.
too, of course.
Especially
Oh,
now.
oh yeah.
So, I, on a personal note, I'm just really curious. What, may I ask, was your husband from Denmark? Was he Danish?
No,
No.
he was
Okay.
from France originally.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because I had an experience where I married a fellow in the Middle East. We moved back to his origins, and it was his repatriation journey, not mine. It was my first time to the US, and catastrophic, absolutely catastrophic. Watching him trying to fit in again, trying to be the responsible son, back in an old culture that he had outgrown, and my own culture shock. It was such a confluence, so I was just very curious about that.
Yeah, well, my ex-husband was born in France, but his parents are originally from Morocco. And
Mm,
unfortunately, Denmark has a bit of an underbelly when it comes to integration. Not
yes,
doing such a good, like, it just doesn't have the history. It's a small country with six
yeah,
million people, and he really felt he felt prejudice. He did he
yes,
it was
yeah,
like had a
really
lot of
hard.
really hard. I
Mm,
was having a very different experience. I had moved here for work. I had a job opportunity. We're trying to slow it down. His lifestyle as well, and my lifestyle started to deviate. Like everything just, yeah,
yes,
it
yeah,
was a confluence of factors. But culture definitely played a big role in that. Even though it was a very different story to yours,
yes,
culture did play a role in that our demise, if you will.
yes, different but similar. And I think that you know, many of us as global-hearted citizens, there's a willingness to move. There's a willingness to use geography. There's a willingness to explore, and that's our natural. So that's a sort of a natural thing. But then reality on the ground can be quite different from what we're expecting when you have all of, like you said, a country of 6 million people. That would be difficult. And my experience was in Louisiana. I never lived in America before, and I went to Louisiana. So I can really see that that kind of took you into the journey of recovering as a nomad.
Mm, definitely. It was learning how to stay, learning what that meant. Also honestly, develop a deeper relationship with myself because when we're on the move or when we're moving frequently, at least it's my experience, it's kind of like a honeymoon, right? Like you can
Yes,
leave
it
things
is.
behind because whoa, new culture, so much to discover. There's so much stimuli, and
Yes,
so many
yes,
things are happening. And, I can get lost in a place instead of
yes,
getting lost in myself, right?
yeah,
I'm living very externally
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
as opposed to kind of grounding down in myself because my
Mm-hmm.
environment is sort of, I don't know if it's the word stable, but it's consistent, you know?
Yes, yes, yeah.
So I think that's part of recovery was that kind of coming home to me.
So tell me about your book. What is the name of your book?
The name of my book is Welcome to the Creative Club. Make life your biggest art project.
So tell me about the making life your biggest art project. We have, I'm San Miguel, we have lots and lots of artists. So, and I think there's the ability to be creative anywhere, but tell me about that.
Sure. Well, I wrote the book to smash the myth that creativity is reserved for the chosen few and invite everyone to access and apply creativity to their design of their lives.
Yeah.
That was important to me. I grew up, I don't know, I think, well, where do I begin? I think we are born creative. If you're a human being, you're an artist at play or work. It's in our DNA, it's in how our brains are wired, it's what enabled our survival as a species. And I think what stops most of us from being creative is the belief that we're not.
Yeah.
And so for me, I really wanted to invite people to reclaim what's always been theirs, and that's their innate creativity. And there's
Mm,
nothing more creative than designing your one experience of this life that you have.
right.
And so that was really the impetus and sort of the force behind the book. And it's a combination of memoir and neuroscience research and interviews, field work to invite people to create as well and to see how that could apply to their lives and even poetry. My editor said, if you're inviting people to make life their biggest art project, you better make this book your biggest art project, which I thought felt
Oh,
fair.
yes, that's a very good point. Making it your biggest art project. So, you know, for our listeners who are living abroad, and I say that living overseas supersizes your life. Would you agree with that? It's like you go into a store in the US anyway, and you want a 12-ounce drink and you come out with 48 ounces.
Absolutely.
I kind of feel like our overseas lifestyles are like that because we're juggling nuance and novelty and stimulus, like you just talked about. But we're also still have to deal with all the new things, the bureaucracy, the logistics, the schooling, the education. We have to deal with making friends, finding that sense of belonging. So do you have some one creative or small shift that people can use that is really practical that they can do today, they can do tomorrow, that will start to um, help them unlock that art project that is their lives overseas?
Well, I would say that a lot of people who are expats and who have moved have already embodied their creative power
Oh,
because
yeah, some of it, yes.
well, in many ways, it's
Yeah,
making an active choice on
yeah,
the life you want to create. Like I want to go to, I don't know, Tokyo. Never been there before, but it's like I want to create this idea of this
yeah,
vision. I have this kind of creative project in my mind of what life in Tokyo would be like, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna make it happen. Now, when rubber meets road, sometimes it might look a little different and a lot of things come into play. But I feel that there's a certain creative agency with that decision to go and create a life somewhere. I mean, that is
yeah,
beautiful. I
yeah.
think where stuckness might happen is when we get overwhelmed with a sense of bureaucracy and trying to figure stuff out and feeling a bit lost and disconnected and sometimes it's also the disconnect between the fantasy or the vision and then reality.
Yeah, yeah.
So for anyone who is feeling creatively stuck in a new country, I mean, I would, this might sound very obvious, but I mean, to take a beat and be a tourist in that country. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes you have
Yeah.
to, be the citizen, but maybe just for a minute, try to reconnect with why you moved there in the first place. So if it was Tokyo, there's I don't know. It's like I remember I've been to Tokyo. There was this ramen shop that I discovered that all they made was like ramen, and it was the best ramen I ever had in this like smoky little restaurant. And I just really felt like I was in Japan, and
Mhm.
it was dreamy. It was like a scene from a movie. So I would invite people to create the next scene in their movie, and just to take a
Yeah.
step back and to give themselves the space to do that and to make it happen and to
Yeah.
author.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful thing is to take the time. And I do think there's value in being the tourist because it puts you back in touch with the novelty. Now, you and I had a conversation prior to this, and we talked about the fact that you had a family member who used to live in the city I'm currently living in. And so this city is full of celebrations and parades and stuff. And I think there's a tendency when you live long term as an expat in a place to just go, oh, yeah, that's happening again. And I don't have to participate. But I do think there is a sense of renewal when you go to participate in those local things. It's good for our soul and it's good for our sense of belonging because
Definitely.
it attaches us. It's a way of creating connection, right?
To me, what I'm hearing you say is activating our curiosity.
Exactly.
So we that's why we moved, right? To feed our curiosity. And sometimes we can get caught in the routine of just living, just full stop, whether that's abroad or at home. That
Yes.
you're not immune to it just because you're in a different country. And so it's an invitation to get curious again, get curious about the place you're in. Be
Right.
like, oh
Right.
yeah, it's dia. My mom used to love las dia de los muertes. And she
Yes.
used to go all out with her costume and it looked so cool. And she would really she would
Yeah.
get into it,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think it did make her feel very connected to San Miguel. It was a real experience because she'd be out there in the parade, like
Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
costumed out, and that's
Right.
that's very creative. Just creating the costume and getting
Exactly.
involved, and you're creating a scene in your life rather than just
Yeah.
being in the comfort of your home, in a routine.
And it goes beyond participation, doesn't it? I mean, I think that participation in a community experience builds a sense of belonging, builds a sense of creativity. I mean, builds your creativity as well. So it's all positive and it's all creative.
Definitely. I remember doing research for the book, and I love this because, of course, it pertained to me personally. But I was debunking the myth that alcohol and drugs fuel creativity. The research
Mm,
shows they do not. But
no.
one of the things that the researchers did find that fuels creativity is travel.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Travel fuels creativity because
Yes.
all of a sudden we come into contact with stimuli and experiences and challenges
Yes.
that are new, and that
Yeah.
activates our creativity because we have to figure out new creative solutions or creative responses to this environment that we're in, rather than kind of being in the same having facing the same things day in day out, but this really kind of pumps our creativity up, and I just love to hear that. And that could be living abroad or visiting or traveling or being a tourist, just getting out of the daily routine.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so you've lived and worked across all these multiple cultures. You've been a journalist in Sri Lanka, you've studied in New York, you've lived all different places as a child growing up. Finally, you've adapted and adopted Copenhagen. Now, can you look back and recognize how a place shaped your creative expression? I mean, have you brought facets of those places and those cultures with you that you now use to be creative?
Well, I think they became a part of me. I don't know if I definitely brought them with me, but they shaped me. They usually expanded my understanding of the world and showed me a gray zone where I used to think there was like black or white. I just
Mm.
felt moved to comment. I remember living in Sri Lanka, and also London was one of my hardest. It sounds weird. London was one of my hardest moves
I
because
get it. I
I
understand.
I thought we shared a language. The Brits will say no, we do not. So there's one thing I've already gotten wrong. I thought because on paper, at face value, there's so many things we shared, I
Yeah.
made so many assumptions.
Right.
And it took me at least 2 years to kind of stop being a bull in a china shop.
Yeah.
Because also New York City communication style, which has always stayed with me. That's I can't really shake that. It's part of who I am. Is kind of antithetical to the way British the British
Yes.
people communicate,
Very
which is
different. Very
very
different.
very
Very
coded
coded,
language. Yeah.
indirect, very
Yes.
indirect.
Indirect coded. And I mean, I just remember I was in a meeting once. We presented the work. I used to work at a creative agency, so we pitched it, and the client was like, "Yes, quite right. Yes, or quite." It's just very kind of subdued. I was like, "Okay, that went well." And then afterwards, my colleagues looked at me and went, "That went absolutely terribly." Like, I mean, he said it was okay, and he's like, "No, that means it was horrible." I'm like, "Oh, does it?" I just got so confused because it required so much more mental capacity for
Yes.
me
Yes.
to understand what was going on. Anyway, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because that's an example of how it kind of shaped
Coding.
me. Yeah, coding.
Mhm.
It just like
Mhm.
exposed me to different ways of being in the world and different
Yes.
ways of
Yes.
communicating and learning how. This is the biggest challenge for me in any culture, in any move. There is a line where you can see this local norms and culture and you can adapt and integrate.
Mhm.
But there are some parts of us and where we come from, however mutt mix that might be for me, that also make me who I am and that
Yes.
have
Yes.
something to contribute. That
Yes.
difference
Yes.
also contributes something.
Yeah. What addition can you make?
Exactly. So it's walking the tightrope balance between respecting the living room you're in, right? But
Yeah.
also not losing the difference that what makes you different, what makes you who you are,
Yeah.
and I've always found that a very delicate balance. Also in Sri Lanka, same thing, like knowing, yeah, maybe standing up for myself as a woman in certain situations. I know that's not culturally acceptable, but I think it's important for me. And it's something that's a value that I have, so I'm going to stand for say the
Yes.
thing. And but it's a tightrope balance because sometimes without knowing it, and this happened in Sri Lanka, is I can bring in my view of the world, which might not be correct, and it might be damaging. Like I didn't
Mm.
want someone to live with me because
Yeah.
the societal
Yes.
hierarchy was so different that I couldn't. It just didn't. It wouldn't work for me, right? But one day she would call me Madame. I said, "You can just call me Pia," and that blew her mind, not in a
Yes.
good
Yeah.
way. She got
Yeah.
really like very confused,
Upset.
like
Yes.
and very upset, like, "Oh, this is possible." And then I spoke to local friends and like that was not you you
Yeah.
you didn't do anything good in that conversation. And when I analyzed it, and I'm being very candid, also critical towards myself, when I analyzed it, it was to make me feel better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It wasn't for her.
Right.
And and
And this is
and
the
it's these
baggage
kinds
we
of
bring.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's invisible and it's insidious
Yes.
and we have blind sides
Yeah.
and we can't see this invisible
No.
baggage that we carry with us all the time. So it's very difficult to have 360-degree view of ourselves because we'll never have that. It's like if you're the picture, and you're the frame, how do you see these intercultural communications and systems and things that we all screw up? It's very normal in this very mixed up human life. So
Thank you for that. And it's
give
when
yourself a
it
little forgiveness.
oh, no, I do. It was just really interesting because I didn't think of myself as having sort of this point of view
Yeah.
where, where I thought that was better. I thought this way of being with
Yes.
just no
Yes.
hierarchy was better, but that's also an assumption of
Mm,
exceptionalism in some way, but I didn't see it. And I remember
mm,
I was quite young. So I just, so all of these experiences opened me, cracked me open,
right.
made me think more about how I saw the world, how I saw myself, how I saw my own culture, what
Yeah.
was true, what wasn't true, what was what I've learned,
Uh,
it really required a lot of like
yeah.
self-interrogation and with kindness and compassion. And thank you for bringing that into our space of like, woof, and right and wrong. I don't even know how those exist. It's more like, it's just like a gray zone and we figure it out.
It
And I think
is.
that's expansive creative territory in terms of our own growth. So I don't
Yeah.
know if it was the places themselves, but the experiences in the places shaped,
Molded. And
molded
shape.
me,
Yeah, I
definitely.
love that. I love that. And I think they do. So tell me about this journey of being a recovering nomad. Have you identified that there are certain steps or processes, or how can people think about that?
Well, first there has to be a desire to for recovery.
Yes.
You hit a wall at some point, like I did. That was just my story of like I became aware that I had a choice, and that awareness helped me make a different one for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
also, as a nomad, I really loved and honored adventure. So the
Yeah.
recovering nomad was the new adventure. For
Yes.
some people, becoming a nomad is the adventure. For me, it was the opposite because I had been a nomad for so many years.
Yes.
So it was getting closer to the territory that was my own. So,
Yes. Yeah.
becoming an explorer of my inner terrain, being in a stable environment that allowed me to get in touch with myself and my creativity in deeper ways than I could have if I was on the move. So
Mm.
step
Mm.
one is just asking yourself the question are you making an active choice?
Yeah. Yeah.
And is this the choice you want to make? Is this the
Mm.
adventure you want to be on with no judgment? Like, oh, how's this adventure feel for
Yeah.
me? Like, is it the recovering nomad adventure? Is it the nomad adventure? Is it something else entirely?
Mm. And what would the next question be?
Well, let's say someone says, well, let's play with me. What's the answer? What would your, what adventure are you currently on, Doreen? And then I can have more food to play with.
Well, I think that in our status, my husband's going to be 80 soon.
Wow.
And living in the States was pretty difficult for me. I never totally like your experience in going to London. I had a similar experience in living in the States. I did live in the States for 10 years at one point,
Wow.
and then we left to go overseas for another 20. And then when we came back, we sought to settle, and our repatriation was good for about the first 6 to 8 years. And then we became digital nomads and did 6 years worth of that. So, this is all to say that now I've found a beautiful sunny spot with gorgeous, colorful lifestyle where I'm looking at the last chapter of our lives. And so I'm looking at all the effects and all of the impressions that I have brought from living in Japan, living in Saudi Arabia, living in Cameroon, Dubai, all the places that I have been, and really creating a meaningful adventure that it is at a slower pace and a different pace from my previous expat self. And yet, that identity of being an expat is still present. So it's a combination of using the familiar and making the last few years, the last maybe decade or two of our life, really making a difference, creating community, and making it safe and all right for people to have a messy life
Mm.
using travel and then to settle down in whatever way that looks like.
Sounds beautiful. So, what way might that look like?
Well, I think the second question, after we decided, do you want a new adventure? I think the second question was, all right, let's look at the logistics. Is this logistically possible and easy, and can we manage the logistics? And then you manage the logistics, and I would say the third question might be something like, all right, now we're here. Now what? Because there's always that now what moment, isn't there? What's next? There's that like, well, that was interesting. What's next? And how are we going to really connect ourselves to this culture to be a part of of a very meaningful experience? And so how
Mm,
can I make meaning from every day?
mm. I don't know. I mean, yes, um, I just I love deeper diving because imagining there's so many different questions that come up about what safety looks like, what stability looks like, what calm looks like. And when there's an inner turbulence or desire to move, what is that?
Yeah.
Because I think when we're, recovering nomads, that's going to come up. Comes up for me. There's every once in a while I'm just like, oh, like, I'm ready for something else. And I might actually, my therapist said you might always have that
Yes.
feeling. It might always live within you. And so there's nothing wrong with that. It's just going to come through. And then you get to choose how you want to be with it when it comes up.
Yeah.
And, so that's important to me. And I think that's when we get used to newness, getting curious about what it is that we're really searching for, what feeling are we really after, are really powerful questions.
Right. I think that all comes down to building a meaningful life wherever you are at that moment, because life is a precious factor.
Yeah, and defining what meaning means to you, because
Exactly.
what a meaningful life looks like to you is going to be
May
very
be for
different to
someone else.
exactly.
Exactly.
So that to me would be a question like, what does a meaningful life look like to you? And I find like logistics, we always figure it out.
Mm.
I mean,
Yes,
we
everything
can
is
make
figure outable.
choices, everything. We can make choices based on climate and ease of life and, location and family and near airport. And there's like, there are a lot of logistics that do make sense when we're considering moving. But in terms of bureaucracy and everything else, we got to hit the ground running. It's like one step at a time. I think it's really hard to plan ahead of time to, to figure out every single obstacle you have to overcome because oftentimes we don't know it until we're
Right.
there. And then you're
Exactly.
like, oh, okay, that's it. Okay, I'll figure it out. Like, and so trusting that.
And that's also being creative. You write about
Definitely.
neuroscience and you write about creativity. And our brains get challenged in the face of a problem or a situation. And so that's when we get to be creative, when we're processing new languages, new cultures, new ways of being and communicating. So for people who've left careers behind, in order to move abroad. Do you have any recommendations that you hear yourself saying to people on a regular basis? How can they redesign their professional identity? I mean, a lot of people go out there and just jump off a cliff and say, "Oh, I'm going to be some kind of nomad, global digital, whatever." Um, do we always have to go back to creating from scratch, or how do you see that process?
Mm. I think it's interesting what I'm hearing and something I explore a lot is that what I call extinction moments. So extinction moments are very part of our creative process and our creative becoming. And so
Uh-huh.
sometimes a version of us, whether it's an identity, it could be a career, it could be something we did, has to die for the next version of us to kind of be born.
Yeah.
Luckily, we take all of it with us. So it's
Yeah.
not like we become a whole different person. We have the beauty and of that all our experiences that, live within always. But maybe
Right.
there's a part of us. Usually sometimes it could be something we've been very successful at. And those are
Uh-huh.
the hardest extinction moments to have, but we're just
Uh-huh.
not getting lit up by it in the same way. So
Yes.
it's time. That's a signal that it's time to move. It's time to grow. It's time
Uh-huh.
for change.
Yep.
So, in between the extinction moment and the creative rebirth or the renaissance, however you would like to say it, there's
Right.
often a void space. There's this
Mm,
in between, which can feel very crunchy, feel very uncomfortable because
right.
we're in this space of not knowing where we are exactly. We're in between who we were and who we're
And who we're
becoming.
becoming. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that kind of void space can feel really sticky and uncomfortable. But our capacity to manage being in the unknown, the
Yeah.
uncertain unknown, is also speaks to our creative capacity. Right? Because that's the heartland of creativity, because anything is possible in that space.
I
So
love
we have
that.
to build our capacity to be in it.
I
And in
love
that
that.
space, we can rediscover what it is that we're really called to make real in our world and to create next.
Oh, that's fabulous. So while we've been talking, I just like to do a little review of some of the things that we've covered. I was just showing Pia a picture of my I've forgotten what it's called, thought map or road map, but all the wonderful things that you brought to this conversation today. One of the things you said, or some of the things you said, was that, uh, when you're feeling stuck, just go out, be a tourist. Be the citizen sometimes, but be the tourist other times in order to create novelty. Another golden gem that you dropped was, you always have a choice and make that choice. And the first question to ask yourself when you are in the recovering nomadic stage is what new adventure is this? What is this adventure going to look like? And it can be absolutely staying where you are, or it can be moving. There's no judgment. And so it's disconnecting that judgment, I think is what you said. Also, you talked about activating our curiosity, developing a deeper relationship with yourself, and welcoming your life, welcoming art into your life so that your life becomes your biggest art project. And finally, you landed on extinction moments, which are really related to a renaissance, which we hopefully experience every day that we get to live. I just love this. This is fabulous. So please tell us, Pia, how can people find you if they would like to work with you? Tell us a little bit more about your work and the collective studio, please.
Sure. I call myself a creative midwife because that's often helpful
Yeah.
in the sense that I help people birth their next project, whether it's a business, a brand, a book, a creative venture, a project. I help them breathe and birth it
Hmm.
through a combination of coaching and creative skills that I've gathered working over almost 2 decades as a creative director, copywriter, and strategist for agencies across Scandinavia and London. So it's very exciting. The short of it is I creatively partner with visionary rebels, unconventional dreamers, and inspired misfits to bring their wild visions and ventures into the world to create an impact. And it's lovely work. It's I have get so much fulfillment from seeing someone not only create what they're really looking to create, but to see who they get to become in the
In the
process.
process, yes.
That's really what it's about.
And where can people find you specifically on the internet? And we're going to
Collect
put all of this in the show notes.
collective.studio.
Collective, and that's collective with a K, KOLLECTIV dot studio.
It's spelled the Danish way.
The Danish way. Excellent. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation about the different stages of and the healthy parts of using travel in order to inspire and create us and help us become more creative. Is there one last thought that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
I think for this audience in particular, who are people who have, the courage and the chutzpah to move and to create their lives and to go on adventures and have new experiences, I would just, first of all, celebrate them and activating their creativity and
Yes.
curiosity to create the life, their art project of a life, right?
Yeah.
And maybe if they're feeling a bit like whether it's stuck or a little bit of this kind of like feeling, however, no words for it, it's really just a sound. I would invite them to think about how they would like to creatively direct their next scene.
Mm.
And for me, that could look like putting on my favorite Guns N' Roses t-shirt, fire red engine, red lipstick, Billie Eilish on the speaker
Yeah.
in my kitchen and just having a dance in my kitchen.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
scene, set, music, sound. It's just as a reminder that we get to creatively direct our days and each scene. So if someone out there is feeling a bit like stuck or back into a routine or, lost in bureaucracy and forgetting about why they moved in the first place,
Yeah.
maybe it's just how would you creatively direct your next scene?
Right. Right. I love that. Think about the scene, the set,
Yeah.
sound. Yeah.
Costume design, soundtrack, vibe, mood,
Right.
script, main
Yes.
character energy, all of it, and just have fun. And if that feels overwhelming, it could even just be what would be your theme song as you start your day tomorrow. We could even just start there.
A theme song for a day. Well, you heard it here on Nomadic Diaries. Thank you so much, Pia Mailhot-Leichter. What a wonderful conversation this has been. How do you say goodbye in Danish?
The first thing I was going to come up is au revoir, which is just that's how the brain works. We're just talking
See?
about this.
See? Au
And
revoir is French,
yeah,
yes.
VCs.
VCs.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today and VCs. And as we always say here, sayonara, masalama, and hasta luego. Thank you, listeners.
Adiós, Dorin. Gracias por todo.
De nada.